On Friday, we learned that Congressman John Lewis died. And I wanted to give you a chance to react to that. He's a civil rights legend. If you had anything you wanted to say about it.
Yes, I think it's truly a loss for our country, especially in this time of crisis that we're in. The moral courage that he has had throughout his entire life is just an inspiration. And so in his death, it's just given me a chance to really sit back and think about how courageous he was as a young person with SNCC and with going above and beyond for justice and equality. And so his death really has been inspiring. It's very sad, but it's also amazing to realize that his life was so well lived and he made such a great impact. I think that we can all strive, for when that time does come for us, that we've done everything possible that we could do for justice and equality. So that inspires me.
And over the summer, we've seen protests across the country following the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, advocating for the Black Lives Matter movement. And something that's come out of that is a petition has started where people are calling to reopen the Robert White case, who was shot and killed by an officer a little over 2 years ago now. And you've publicly tweeted out your support for this petition. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The Robert White case is really part of a pattern in Montgomery County. Although that we are all calling out Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and others who need justice, who should have never been killed at the hands of police, right here in Montgomery County, there have been a number of police shootings that have been fatal. In my particular district, actually, Robert White, Emmanuel Okutuga, and most recently, Fanon Berhe have been victims of Montgomery County police. And so what this petition really is saying is it's a reflection of the community not trusting our investigation process and not having public trust in our police system. So I have joined the call to reopen the investigation because the investigation was flawed, with our Montgomery County police really investigating themselves and then finding the shooting justified and having that result then co-signed by the Howard County State's Attorney. And so I am joining that call to say that the investigation was unjust and that Robert White deserves justice and a true investigation.
What do you think are the chances of a petition like this being reopened? Do you think with all that's going on that people who want to see it reopened can have hope that it can reopen? And if it was to reopen, do you think there's a chance maybe justice could be served this time around?
I think that it can be reopened. However, there are some challenges in terms of our state laws that we really need to take care of to ensure that we have that public accountability, that we're able to create things like a civilian review board that has teeth, to ensure that an investigation can be handled properly and with transparency. There are some state laws that inhibit that, such as the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. So my hope is that while we are working to change state laws, that the conversation around what a just police investigation in Montgomery County, and in particular reopening this investigation, could look like will sort of be happening in tandem, and that anything that would obstruct this case from reopening and being done fairly would then be mitigated through change in state policy as well.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about what kind of policy change is being proposed at the state level right now, or what you'd like to see proposed in the coming times?
Sure. Right now, the Speaker of the House has appointed a work group that is taking a look at what specific changes Maryland should make when it comes to policies around policing. So that work group has met twice so far. The meetings are public, and I definitely encourage anyone interested to participate and weigh in. I believe within the first couple of weeks of August, there will be an opportunity for the public to testify, and I hope a lot of community members will take that opportunity. As far as issues that I would like to see addressed at the state level, one is that I think that we critically critically, very importantly, need to redefine the role of the police in our community. I mentioned Anand Badgujar earlier. That was a case of clear mental health crisis, where unfortunately the police officer came out guns blazing and assessed the situation as, solely a threat and gave just a threat response where it needed a crisis response. And so again, looking at did the police need to be called in that situation? I would say we need to lift up our mental health crisis. We need to look at what the role is of our police, reduce the role of our police, and then reallocate funds to crisis and community services. Then I think we also have to look at the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, which really prevents investigations and discipline from being transparent and just. It gives officers undue flexibility when it comes to investigating disciplinary actions, such as giving them 5 days to get their story together before anyone can even communicate or talk to them about what has taken place. That's something that no member of our community can have the opportunity to just opt out after killing someone for 5 days to say, hold on, I'm going to take my 5 days and figure this out first. So those are two particular things that I think are very important when it comes to us really redefining and reimagining what public safety looks like in our communities.
Thank you. And I know that you went to at the outside of the Silver Spring District station. You spoke about the Robert White case there. What have you been hearing from your constituents at some of these events who are getting involved in local protests? Could you talk to me about what you're just hearing from your constituents during these trying times?
Sure. This is raw and this is real. And because we've had police shootings right here in our community in Silver Spring, it's something that is very real for our residents. And there's definitely a lot of frustration. There's lack of trust, and people want action. People want to truly reimagine public safety and a public safety system where it works for everyone, where Black people are not being shot, where officers are not taking into their own hands to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. So I'm definitely hearing from my constituents from all over the district the need for action. And there's certainly a lot of frustration because we have really seen this play out in our community in District 20 and throughout Montgomery County.
Is there anything that you want to hear from the Montgomery County Police Chief or the Montgomery County Executive since this petition is gaining steam?
I would like them to acknowledge and start ironing out a more fair, community-driven, community-involved process for these investigations, because it really erodes public trust. In the case of Anand Badgujar, when that officer, again, it was a crisis response that was needed, and the officer really came out guns blaring, and the response is that, oh, we are investigating it. It really does not provide much faith in the system when we know that literally our police department is investigating our own police department. And so I would like to see our county executive and Chief Jones really start outlining and having community conversations around what a fair process looks like and start taking steps towards that, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to me, Delegate Wilkins. That's all my questions, but is there anything else that you wanted to add that I didn't ask you about?
Just that we have to keep up the pressure. Elected officials like me are working to make sure that we see true imaginative reforms, and we need the public to keep up the pressure for state and local elected officials and federal officials all over Maryland to make sure that we see true justice.